I have decided there's nothing better than sitting down to a delicious warm bowl of soup after a super busy day. This season, I've been really trying to focus on easy dinner time meals that will help us to get good, healthy, nourishing meals on the table for our families without having to stress about a lot of ingredients or a lot of difficult steps to make those recipes. So today's video is all about new soup recipes that I have found that are going to make dinner time super easy, affordable, healthy, and delicious. We have really enjoyed all of these recipes. They're full of fresh ingredients, they're all easy to prepare, and I'm super excited to share with you the chicken fajita soup recipe. I love fajitas, it's one of my favorite meals. I had no idea you could make it into a soup, so make sure you stay tuned for that recipe. I'm really excited that you're here today. Let's get started. Let's start with broccoli cheese soup. The soup was so good, and sometimes broccoli cheddar soup is just hard to put together. It's hard to make it where it's not sort of clumpy and yucky without a lot of processed ingredients. But this recipe is perfect for those of us who want to keep our ingredients clean, but also simple and uncomplicated. So I'm just going to start by dicing up an onion, and I'm going to saute that onion in a little bit of butter. After my onion is sauteed, I'm just going to add like a 1/4 cup of flour and stir it in and cook it until it's nice and golden brown. Then I'm going to add 4 cups of homemade chicken stock. You can totally use store-bought chicken stock, but this was left over in the refrigerator from when I had bought a rotisserie chicken the other day, so this needed to be used up anyway. So after I heat up the chicken stock and add a cup of milk, I'm going to add 2 pounds of broccoli. I accidentally turned the video off when I was supposed to turn it on, so you didn't see me adding the broccoli, but trust me, it's in there. And after that cooks for about 10 minutes or so, it's ready to be blended. Now, if you don't have an immersion blender, you can get the one really inexpensively on Amazon. I'll link an inexpensive one down in the description box, so you can get one of those for your kitchen. They're really helpful, really valuable to have, and it really makes making broccoli and cheese soup a lot better. I also found that you can do this step in a blender if you have sort of like a high-powered blender like a Vitamix or a Ninja. You can just spoon the soup into the blender, turn it on for about 30 seconds to a minute, and it will do the same exact thing without having to buy an immersion blender. So either way is going to work out fine. Then I'm going to add a couple of seasonings. I'm going to add salt and paprika. I also added 2 cups of cheddar cheese and 1 cup of Parmesan. I would have preferred to have fresh grated Parmesan, but that wasn't available, so this one worked just fine. I'm going to serve it up with some of my new sourdough. I finally was able to bring the sourdough starter out of the refrigerator, bring it back to life. So I'm getting back in the habit of creating some delicious and healthy sourdough bread for my family. I was really excited to share this meal with my friend Caroline, who came for a visit, and the leftovers have been feeding us for lunch all week long. So be sure to try out this recipe. It's really good and it's really healthy. Broccoli is one of those vegetables that really does not get the respect that it deserves. It's packed with nutrients. It really helps with our digestive health. It has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties. It will help us to boost our immune system. So there are so many benefits to eating this broccoli cheese soup, and not to mention how delicious it is. This is a definite must try. Now let's talk about chicken fajita soup. And again, I've already mentioned this. My mind was blown when I found out you could make soup out of chicken fajitas. It's one of my favorite meals, and now I have another way of making it. So I was really excited about trying this, and I will go ahead and give you a spoiler. It turned out delicious, just as good as chicken fajitas, but better for a fall evening. So I'm going to begin by dicing up 3 chicken breasts and sauteing them in about a tablespoon of olive oil. I'm going to add some chili powder, salt, and cumin to season the chicken. And then while the chicken is browning, I'm going to chop up my vegetables. Now, I forgot at the beginning that I was making a soup, so I should have just diced up these onions, but I made them more of like a fajita onion instead. It didn't really affect the end result, but next time I think I will make sure and dice the onions. I also diced up 3 bell peppers, and once the chicken is brown, I'm just going to take it out of the pan and put in another tablespoon of olive oil and add these vegetables and saute them with a little bit more salt, chili powder, cumin, and this time I'm going to add a little bit of paprika. I'm going to make sure and stir this really well so that all of the seasonings can combine well. I think adding the seasonings as you go in this recipe is really going to bump up the flavor of it in the end result. Instead of just adding the seasonings at the end when the chicken stock is added, I think that this method will really improve the quality of the end result. So after the vegetables are nice and tender, it took about 8 to 10 minutes. I'm going to add back in the chicken. I'm going to add 1 can of drained corn and 1 can of drained and rinsed black beans. You don't have to rinse them. That's just a personal preference. I'm also going to add 1 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes with all of its juices. And I added 4 cups of chicken stock. Next time I make this, I think I will reduce the chicken stock to about 2 to 2.5 cups because I felt like the end result was a little bit too soupy for me. It's just a personal preference, so you can just adjust the amount of chicken stock that you add according to your preference. This was such a good dinner. It was super easy. I wish I had had time to make some cornbread. I think it would have really stepped it up even another notch and made it even better. Please try this, and when you do, make sure you come back and let me know what you thought. Next up, we're going to have a kielbasa sausage and kale soup. This sausage had been in the refrigerator for a while. I think Kendall had bought it to make some lunch with, but she never got around to it. So I just decided we would use it for today's soup, and if she needs it later, we can replace it. I was really excited to have a helper in the kitchen. I love spending time with Lane in the kitchen, and I brought out this special kids knife. I will make sure and link one down below so that you can get one for your child or grandchild. It really helps them to be able to explore in the kitchen without any risk of them getting hurt. He literally stabbed himself with this thing and it didn't hurt him at all. I think he really enjoyed being an active participant in making tonight's supper. Even though I knew he was not going to eat a single bite of this, maybe he would eat the potatoes, but I knew he wasn't going to eat the kale. It really got him involved, and I think the more that I can get him involved in cooking healthy meals, the more likely it'll be that he will at least give them a try and consume a lot more healthy, nourishing vegetables throughout his lifetime. So I really enjoyed having him help. He helped me to slice up the kielbasa sausage, and I just sauteed that in a little bit of olive oil. I also added some onions to that and sauteed them for a couple of minutes as well. While that was sauteing, I'm going to chop up about 4 potatoes. You can leave the potatoes out if you would prefer. You can probably replace those potatoes with some kind of maybe northern beans or garbanzo beans, and it would be just as good. So you can just explore with the different ingredients in this soup. It's really versatile, and I think whatever you put in it will be really good. So we're going to put the sausage and onions in a crock pot. We're also going to add 1 large can of diced tomatoes. And again, in this recipe, we're going to add 4 cups of chicken broth. I think that I probably will reduce this amount as well next time. Maybe I'm just not a very soupy soup person. I don't know. But I felt like these last 2 recipes really had too much broth in them, and we'll definitely reduce it next time. So you do whatever you would prefer. I did also add about a cup of water into the skillet and allow it to heat so that I could get all of the fond off of the bottom of the skillet and add it into the soup. That's going to be a lot of flavor that I didn't want to just leave in the pan and wash down the drain whenever I wash this pan. So you can skip that step, but I do think that it's going to add a lot of flavor. I cooked this on low in the crock pot while we ran some errands, and when I got back, everything was nice and warm and cooked well. For the last 30 minutes, I'm going to add 2, maybe 3 cups of fresh washed kale, and then about 10 minutes before I'm ready to serve, I'm going to add 1 cup of half and half. You can also use heavy cream or milk. Any of them will do. The half and half is just what I had in the fridge. I'm going to mix everything together for the last time, allow it to cook with the lid off for about 10 more minutes, and then it's ready to serve. This soup really turned out good. I've had several servings of it already. It really is a good filling meal. The kale in this soup is really packed with nutrition. It's really good for our heart health and our eye health. It will even help increase your absorption of calcium. It has a ton of vitamins in it. It's full of antioxidants. There's just so many good benefits to including something like kale on a regular basis in our meals. And I think this soup is a really good way to introduce your family to these kinds of vegetables. And I think this soup makes it a little more palatable to an uninterested or unenthusiastic kale eater. All of these soups were really good. They turned out delicious. The broccoli cheese soup, I think, was my family's favorite. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. I would love to hear about your family's favorite soup recipes. I need all of the new recipe ideas that I can get. I'm really trying to keep new recipes going to prevent us from sort of getting into a dinner time rut. So please be sure to share all of your family's favorite soup recipes down in the comments below. You can find the recipes for all 3 of these soups in the description box. I've linked a lot of good information for you, so I hope that you will check that out as well. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have a wonderful week. I love you, and I will see you again next time.